The richest man at that gas station was wearing a jacket older than his youngest kid, and that single detail should terrify anyone still buying things to look successful.
Picture this. You land the raise you've been chasing for 2 years. The number finally hits your account, and your very first move isn't to save it, isn't to invest it, it's to spend it on proof.
New sneakers, new watch, maybe a car that finally matches how hard you've worked. You want the world to clock the upgrade.
And for about 4 weeks, it works. People notice. You feel it.
Then one random Tuesday you check your balance, and something doesn't add up. You're somehow thinner on cash than you were before the raise even landed.
Here's the part that keeps me up more than it should. Broadcasting wealth is the one habit almost every genuinely wealthy person quietly refuses to do.
If you've ever felt that itch to prove you're doing well, or you've wondered why so many net worth people drive a decade-old hatchback and dress like they shop at the same 3 stores forever, stick around because Navira Invests is about to rewire how you see status completely. Let's start with a number that should make you uncomfortable. Behavioral finance research, including work popularized by money coach Ramit Sethi, points to a pattern where people who load up on luxury logos to signal wealth end up financially worse off than
people who don't bother, not slightly worse off, meaningfully worse off. The louder your image, the quieter your actual bank account often gets.
Walk through this with me. Say you're pulling in $80,000 a year, solid income, real money, but you want people to feel that you've made it, so the spending starts.
$200 denim and $800 timepiece, a car note pushing $450 a month.
An apartment in the right zip code running $1,800 a month just for the address. Every single one of those is a billboard.
Everyone says, look how far I've come. But here's the twist nobody warns you about. The people who actually have the money aren't playing that game at all.
Multiple studies on millionaire spending habits, echoing the classic findings behind The Millionaire Next Door.
You show that a huge share of self-made millionaires wear cheap watches and drive cars that are, on average, close to a decade old.
Read that again. The people with the fattest accounts are wearing the thinnest wallets on their wrist.
You're spending to look rich, while the people who are rich are dressed like they just mowed the lawn.
Now here's where it gets genuinely strange. Your own brain is running a con on you.
Every time you slide on something expensive, some part of you assumes the whole room instantly reads you as successful. That's the story you're telling yourself.
But flip the psychology around for a second. Why would someone who's actually secure need to convince a stranger of anything?
People with real financial footing don't check what their watch costs because they're not trying to win an argument nobody's having.
The moment you're working overtime to convince people you've made it, that's usually the giveaway that you haven't, not yet, anyway.
There's a name for this loop, status anxiety. You sense somewhere underneath that people might not rate you as doing well, so you go by the evidence.
And here's the cruel joke buried inside it. The people who genuinely respect you were never grading your wrist in the first place.
Meanwhile, the ones who are scanning your outfit for a verdict, they're anxious about their own standing too. So watching your spending is how they soothe their own insecurity.
Which means, when you break it down, you're often spending real money trying to impress people who are just as stretched thin and just as nervous as you are.
Sit with that for a second. There's actually a term researchers use for this social comparison spending. The habit of pricing your purchases not against your own goals, but against whoever you last scrolled past.
The trouble is that the comparison never ends, because there's always a nicer car, one lane over, and a bigger house, one street away.
Chase that ladder and you'll find the top rung keeps moving every time your income does, which is exactly why lottery winners and newly promoted executives so often end up back at zero.
Lifestyle simply expands to swallow whatever showed up. Think of it like a treadmill built specifically to keep you in place while convincing you that you're moving forward.
Every raise buys a slightly nicer version of the same trap, and the finish line, the moment you'll finally feel like you've made it, keeps sliding another 10 feet away.
The only way off that treadmill isn't running faster
It's stepping off entirely and deciding your spending answers to your own goals, not to whoever happens to be watching this week.
Quick detour, because this matters.
I put together a free download, call it the Cash Leak Audit, a short breakdown of the 10 sneaky places most people bleed money every single month without ever noticing.
If you're tired of watching your paycheck vanish before payday, it's linked below and pinned in the comments.
Costs nothing, takes about 10 seconds to grab, and it might quietly be the most useful thing you download all year.
Okay, back to the breakdown. Let's put real numbers next to each other, because this is where it stops being philosophy and starts being math.
Person A is chasing the image, designer wardrobe budget, roughly $500 a month. A flashy watch, $1,200, bought once.
Car payment, $450 a month, and an apartment upgrade that costs an extra $400 a month just for the nicer building.
Add it up monthly and you're at $1,350.
Stretch that across a year and you're looking at just over $16,000 plus that $1,200 watch, call it $17,400 a year spent purely on optics.
Now meet person B, doesn't care how the outfit reads, regular clothes, maybe $80 a month, a basic watch, $50, bought once and forgotten.
A used car paid off, no note at all. A perfectly fine apartment with zero premium attached. Total monthly spend on image, $80.
Annual total, less than $1,000 including the watch. The gap between them is over $16,000 every single year.
Stretch that across 2 decades, and person has funneled well over $300,000 into looking successful.
Person B spent around $20,000 over that same stretch and kept the rest. Here's the part that should actually stop you mid-scroll.
If person B simply invested that yearly gap at a modest average market return, that difference compounds into something close to $750,000 extra dollars by the 20-year mark.
Person A is left holding a scuffed watch in a folder of old photos. Person B walks away with a figure most people spend an entire career chasing and never quite reach.
Let's slow that down for a second, because compounding is one of those ideas people nod along to without actually feeling it.
In year one, that $16,000 gap just sits there, barely noticeable, a bit more than $1,000 a month.
By year 5, the earlier deposits have already started generating their own small return, quietly adding on top of what's being saved fresh.
By year 10, the account isn't just growing from new contributions and more. A meaningful chunk of the growth is coming from money the account has already earned on its own.
And by year 20, that snowball has picked up so much size that a full year of looking rich spending wouldn't even move the needle if person A suddenly tried to catch up.
This is the part almost nobody explains clearly. Time isn't a nice-to have in this equation. It's doing more of the heavy lifting than the size of any single deposit.
Which means the version of you deciding right now today to skip one status purchase isn't just saving that one purchase's cost.
You're planting a seed that has 15 or 20 years to grow into something that purchase could never have become on its own. Let me give you a second example, because one comparison isn't enough to make this real.
Think about 2 coworkers who started the same entry-level job on the same day, same starting salary, same city.
Coworker 1 upgrades everything within the first year, new phone every release, weekend trips built around photos, a car lease that resets every 3 years.
Coworker 2 does almost nothing differently for 5 straight years, same phone until it breaks, public transit instead of a lease.
Home, cooked lunches instead of the daily takeout run. 5 years pass. Coworker 1 is still renting the same studio, still juggling 2 credit cards, still 1 slow month away from stress.
Coworker 2 just put a down payment on a small place, in cash, no drama, no announcement on social media.
Nobody clapped for coworker 2 along the way. There was no applause round for skipping the upgrade, no likes for the boring lunch.
That's exactly the point. The moves that actually build wealth are almost never the moves that get noticed in the moment.
They only become visible years later as a number in an account nobody was watching,
Now let's talk about why this trap is so easy to fall into, because it's not about willpower, it's about wiring.
Humans evolved in small groups where visible status actually mattered for survival. Who you looked like mattered because it signaled who was safe to trust, trade with, or follow.
That instinct never got the memo that we now live surrounded by thousands of strangers on a screen who forget your outfit within seconds.
Your brain still runs the old software. It still rewards you with a little hit of relief every time you think someone's impressed.
The problem is that hit is temporary, and the bill for chasing it is not.
Here's a rhetorical gut check worth sitting with. If nobody could ever see what you owned, no photos, no comments, no compliments, would you still buy it?
For a huge share of purchases, if you're honest, the answer is no.
And that gap between what you'd buy for yourself and what you buy for an audience is basically a direct measurement of how much money status anxiety is quietly costing you every single month.
So what does actual wealth look like? If it's not the watch, the car, or the zip code, it's invisible.
It's the ability to walk away from a bad job without panic. It's having options nobody can see from across a room.
It's the quiet knowledge that if everything fell apart tomorrow, you'd still be fine for a full year. No borrowing, no begging, no spiral.
That's the real flex, not the label on your jacket, not the badge on your car. The number sitting quietly in an account nobody's looking at. And here's the twist that flips the whole video on its head, the wealthiest people you actually know. You probably have no idea they're wealthy, because they've never once needed to announce it.
Meanwhile, the people broadcasting the loudest lifestyle online are frequently the ones one missed paycheck away from a real problem.
So here's the challenge I'll leave you with. Stop buying things to narrate your success to strangers.
Buy things because you genuinely need them, or because they genuinely bring you joy, not because of who might be watching.
Rewear the jacket. Keep driving the paid off car one more year. Live somewhere that's comfortable, not somewhere that's impressive.
Take the gap and quietly move it into savings or into an index fund or into anything that compounds.
That's the actual status symbol nobody can see, and everybody eventually notices anyway. Options, freedom, and a life. You're not performing for an audience.
You want people to assume you've made it. Actually make it. And watching their opinions stop mattering to you is how you'll know you got there.
If you want somewhere to actually start this week, keep it small and boring on purpose.
First, pick one recurring expense that exists purely for how it looks, not how it functions, and cancel or downgrade it before Friday.
Second, take whatever that expense was costing you and move it automatically into savings or a simple investment account the same day your paycheck lands, so you never have to rely on willpower
twice. Third, give yourself one honest month of tracking every purchase and asking the question we just covered: would I still buy this if nobody ever saw it?
You don't need all 10 habits wealthy people quietly practice to see a shift. You need one uncomfortable month of noticing, and the pattern starts to break on its own.
None of this means never enjoying your money. That's not the message here, and it never was. Buy the nice dinner because the food is genuinely good.
Get the jacket because it's warm and well made and you'll wear it for a decade.
The line isn't spending versus not spending. It's spending for yourself versus spending for an audience that was never really watching that closely to begin with.
If this reframed anything for you today, do me a favor and tap that like button. It genuinely helps this reach more people who need to hear it, and it costs you nothing.
And if you're new here, this is Navira Invests, and we do this every single week. Real money psychology, no fluff, no hype.
Consider sticking around. Send this to the one friend who's still convinced they have to appear wealthy before they can actually become wealthy.
That belief is backwards, and this video just proved it. One last thought before I let you go. Nobody on their deathbed has ever asked to see their old designer watch collection one more time. Nobody's proudest memory is a car lease.
The things people actually treasure at the end are the choices they got to make because they had room to make them. The trip they didn't have to think twice about. The job they got to leave because
It wasn't serving them anymore. The year they took off to be present for someone who needed them. That's the whole game.
Not the appearance of freedom for an audience, the actual thing quietly for yourself. Catch you in the next upload.